Picture this. Someone you know just hit $20,000 saved. Took them 3 years, and within 6 months, they're back to $3,000 wondering what the hell happened. Or maybe that person is you. Here's what's insane. The hard part wasn't saving the $20,000. That's just discipline and time. The hard part is the 48 hours after you hit that number, when your brain starts whispering that you deserve something nice, that you've earned an upgrade, that this is finally your moment to stop living like a broke college student. And that whisper is what separates people who retire with $2 million from people who work until they're 70. My name is Nick, and today we're talking about the most dangerous moment in your financial life. The moment right after you've saved something meaningful. Because nobody tells you this, but there are only two things that happen when you hit $20,000 saved. Either you turn it into $350,000 over the next 30 years, or you incinerate it trying to look successful. And the difference comes down to what you do in the next 2 weeks. Here's what nobody tells you about this moment. Your brain wants certainty. The market gives you volatility. Your brain wants immediate gratification. Wealth building requires decades of patience. This is why most people fail at this stage, not because they're not smart enough, but because they're fighting their own psychology. So let's talk about what actually works, starting with the most important question. Do you have high interest debt? I'm talking about credit cards, personal loans, anything charging you more than 6 or 7%. If you have $10,000 sitting on a credit card at 22% interest, you're not investing that money. You're paying off the debt first. Let me show you why. If you have $10,000 on a credit card at 22% and you only make the minimum payments, it will take you over 25 years to pay it off, and you will pay roughly $14,000 in interest alone. That's right, you pay the bank more in interest than you originally borrowed. Meanwhile, if you invested that $10,000 in the stock market earning a hopeful 10%, you're fighting a losing battle. You are paying a guaranteed 22% to earn a potential 10%. Mathematically, you are volunteering to lose money every single day. You keep that debt alive. The rule, anything above 6 to 7% interest gets paid off before you invest. Credit cards at 22%, gone. Personal loans at 15%, obliterated. Federal student loans at 6.4%, that's borderline. But I lean toward paying it off because guaranteed returns always beat potential returns, and that interest compounds against you every single month. It's like negative compound interest working in reverse, making you poor while you sleep. I know someone who had $18,000 saved and $12,000 in credit card debt at 21% interest. He convinced himself that investing was more important because building wealth early is everything. So he put $10,000 into index funds and kept making minimum payments on the cards. 3 years later, the market had gone up 30%. His $10,000 was now worth $13,000. Sounds great, right? Except he'd paid $8,000 in credit card interest during those 3 years. His $3,000 gain cost him $8,000 to achieve. He was $5,000 poorer than if he'd just paid off the debt first. And when I explained this to him, he looked like I just told him Santa wasn't real because nobody had ever made him do the actual math. So you've eliminated the high interest debt. You're not bleeding money anymore. Now you might be thinking you should invest everything else immediately. Wrong. Because there's a step most people skip that ends up destroying them later, the emergency fund. If you're single, renting with a stable job and no dependents, you need 3 months of essential expenses. If you've got a mortgage, kids, or freelance income, you need 6 months minimum. For most people, that's $7,500 to $24,000. This is the part where people get nervous because it feels like you're not doing anything exciting with most of the money, but an emergency fund isn't an investment, it's insurance, and it keeps you from going into debt when your transmission dies or you lose your job. Let me tell you what happens when you don't have an emergency fund. Your car needs $1,200 in repairs. You don't have $1,200 sitting around because it's all invested. So you have 3 choices: sell investments and eat the taxes and potential losses, put it on a credit card at 22% interest, or just not fix the car and hope it doesn't get worse. All 3 options are terrible, and now you're making financial decisions based on panic instead of planning. This is why the emergency fund comes first, even though it feels like dead money earning nothing. It's not earning nothing. It's earning peace of mind, which is the only thing that lets you stay invested when the market drops 30%. Where should this emergency fund live? A high yield savings account earning 3.5% to 4.5%, not a regular checking account earning nothing, not the stock market, just a boring FDIC insured high yield savings account. PieBank is paying 4.6%. Marcus and Allie are around 3.3% to 3.65%. Okay, so you've paid off high interest debt, you've got your emergency fund set, and now you've got between $5,000 and $10,000 left. This is where actual wealth building starts. Priority number 1, max out a Roth IRA for 2026. The contribution limit is likely $7,000 to $7,500. Check the IRS website for the exact inflation adjustment. If you're under 50 and make less than the income limit, you can contribute the full amount. This is the single best financial move you can make. Here's why. Everything that grows inside a Roth IRA is tax-free forever, not tax-deferred, tax-free. If you're 25 and you put $7,500 into a Roth IRA today and it grows at 10% per year by age 65, that $7,500 will be worth about $339,000. You won't pay taxes on that $331,500 in gains. If that money was in a taxable account, you'd owe $50,000 to $65,000 in capital gains taxes. You're locking in today's tax rate on the seed and getting tomorrow's tree completely tax-free. Okay, you've opened the Roth IRA and funded it with $7,500. You're staring at your account balance. Now what? This is where people panic and start researching stocks or asking Reddit which companies are about to explode. Stop. Close Reddit. You're about to do something so boring and so effective that it feels like cheating. Inside that Roth IRA, Buy Abroad Index Fund, VOO, tracks the S&P 500 with a 0.03% expense ratio. VTI tracks the entire US stock market, also 0.03%. The S&P 500 has returned about 10% per year on average for the past century. Over any 20-year period, it's never produced a negative real return. And before you ask, no, you don't need to research individual stocks. You're not going to find the next Apple by reading quarterly reports at midnight. You know who finds the next Apple? People who work at Apple's competitors and have inside information, which is also illegal. Everyone else is just guessing and pretending they have a system. Buy the index fund. Let the actual smart people at 500 companies figure out how to make money. Your job is to not interfere. You can add 20% international exposure with VXUS if you want. After you max the Roth IRA at $7,500, open a taxable brokerage account with Fidelity, Schwab, or Vanguard and keep investing in the same index funds. Set up automatic contributions of whatever you can afford monthly. And here's something critical about index funds. You're not just buying stocks, you're buying a system that's been proven to work for decades. When you buy VOO, you're betting on the American economy continuing to grow. Companies go bankrupt, industries collapse, but the overall market has always recovered and reached new highs. Let me show you what compounding does. If you invest $20,000 in an S&P 500 index fund at 10% annually, in 10 years, $51,875. In 20 years, $134,550. In 30 years, $348,988. You turn $20,000 into almost $350,000 by doing nothing for 3 decades. But if you invest that $20,000 and add $500 per month, after 30 years at 10%, you'll have over $1.5 million. You contribute $200,000 total. Your money earns $1.3 million in gains. Your money earned 6.5 times what you put in. Let me put that in perspective. At the 4% safe withdrawal rate, that $1.5 million means $60,000 per year you can pull out forever without touching the principal. That's a full salary. From doing nothing except making one smart decision today and then repeating it monthly for 3 decades. While your friends are stressing about whether they can retire, you're deciding whether to retire at 55 or 50. And here's the cost of waiting. Invest $20,000 today for 30 years at 10%, you get $348,988. Wait 5 years and invest that same $20,000. After 25 years, you'll have $216,694. That 5-year delay cost you $132,294. That's not just money. That's 4 years and 4 months of your working life. Like, imagine telling your 60-year-old self that they have to work 4 extra years because your 25-year-old self waited 5 years to start investing. That's what procrastination actually costs. Not money, time. Now, I know what just happened. I showed you those compound interest numbers, and your brain immediately started looking for ways to juice those returns even higher. Stop. This is where people destroy themselves. They see the S&P 500 near all-time highs and think surely it has to come down soon. So they'll wait for a crash. Here's why that's terrible. The market spends most of its time at or near all-time highs because it trends upward. If you only invested when the market wasn't at all-time highs, you'd be sitting on the sidelines most of the time. There's actually a famous study about this.